Welcome to episode 1286 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
Buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? That's me reminding her, like, hey, in all seriousness, I don't know if you're doing anything in 2024, but one of the things I did was Duolingo. So if you're a Duolingo user, that's me. I'm on day like 117 of remembering my Spanish because I got rid of a lot of it when I divorced my first wife, who was from Puerto Rico. But in all seriousness, if folks are doing that, that's been my 2024. What's something I've done every day. And I know some baseball folks are on it, like Miles from Pitchers List is on it. We're buddies there, and Kevin Goldstein I'm on there with him, and Sahadev Sharma. So there's a few baseball folks on there that encourage one another. Talked to Kevin about a month ago, and he was doing he addressed the entire Minnesota Twins Dominican Republic locker room in Spanish. I was like, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Like a goal. I would love to be able to like put 3 sentences together that work just like right off. So it's fun. I did a family thing. So yeah. How you doing, buddy?
My kid's been doing Duolingo for a while now. I think they've been doing it for over a year. So I keep saying like, oh, I should do that so I could kind of like relearn French. But I never get around to actually doing it. I'm doing all right. Just, beautiful Sunday. Looking forward. I had my kids' first ever T-ball game yesterday, and they've got another one today. So that should be a lot of fun. The organized chaos. My kid could not care less. Like they, like literally, they're standing at second base, just like spinning in circles as the ball like goes right past them, and they just don't even go after it. Like all the other kids are diving after the ball and stuff, and my kid is just she couldn't care less. So.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So I 2 children, and neither of them have an athletic bone in their body, which just is hilarious, but also drives me up the wall at the same time. But that is life. We are going to be talking about some FAAB pickups today, and it's a kind of an interesting day with FAAB. Some guys that might be available in different depths of leagues that could have an impact. But first, let's jump into some bad news, because we do have some bad news. Francisco Alvarez going to the IL. He needs thumb surgery to replace the UCL or repair the UCL in his thumb, right? This is different than the UCL in your elbow that pitchers often have to get replaced with Tommy John. But it is likely he's going to miss a vast majority of the season from what I see. They're hoping to get him back at some point. Are you dropping Alvarez, and who are you looking to maybe replace him with in certain leagues?
So I would challenge that he's going to miss the majority of the season, because I'm looking at an article from the National Library of Medicine. Okay. And it said, and this was published in 2018, but it said in this study, 100% of MLB players who achieved the thumb UCL surgery within a season returned at a mean of 8 weeks. So if you have, now obviously if you have a shallow bench, you got to drop. We're all making those decisions right now. But if you have the ability to IL stash, this does not seem like it's going to end his season. Now, I can't speak to what's going to happen with his power from there, because again, it's credit. So, but this was the study that I'm seeing average of 8 weeks with this. So, it said infielders have a significantly lower post-operative WAR compared with pre-operatively, but no significant post-operative performance score differences were noted when infielders were compared with post-index date match controls. So maybe we expect a little bit less from Alvarez in that regard, but if you can afford to stash him in the IL, given the state of catchers, I would.
All right. Yeah, I think in IL leagues where you've got the ability to stash, I guess I understand it. He has looked better this year from a strikeout perspective, only striking out at a 24% clip. And this is a guy that I had kind of pegged as like he's probably close to a 30% strikeout guy. So seeing him make around league average zone contact and only striking out at a 24% clip was really, really encouraging, even though the power hadn't been prodigious yet. 1 homer, 1 stolen base in 59 plate appearances. In leagues where you don't have IL spots, I think he's a cut. I don't know that you can hold on to a second or a third catcher in like NFBC formats And in one catcher leagues, I think he's a cut, right? Like I just don't think there's too many other catchers on the wire in that format. So depending on your format, you might want to
18-team league. I'm in an 18-team league, which is a single catcher league, and Alvarez is my catcher in that league. And so here are the options that are on the wire for an 18-team league. Higashioka, Connor Wong, Victor Caratini, Joey Bart, Gary Sanchez, Jose Trevino, Patrick Bailey, Andrew Kanizer, Renee Pinto. I mean, these are the options that are out there for me to replace, for me to make a replacement this week, and for this week, for the next couple of months. This is what I'm taking. But as you said, it wasn't like Alvarez was lighting the world on fire. So it's not that much of a drop off right now.
I mean, I think I would probably just go pick up Connor Wong if it was me, but
he is in my waterfall.
Yeah, there you go. All right. AJ Puck goes to the IL with shoulder fatigue. You would think that this would be more like neck fatigue, considering how much he's had to turn his neck really quickly to watch the ball go over the fence. But he's finally out of the rotation, though, not demoted. Are you holding on to AJ Puck in any format?
Not if he's a starting pitcher. I mean, we knew this was going to go poorly. If he would have been in the bullpen, put him in the bullpen, the value would have been there. He was never, ever going to be a starting pitcher. I don't care what was happening during spring training. It doesn't surprise me that he's already falling apart. Like you said, I thought it was whiplash when I first saw something, he was going to the IL. No, if he comes back and they're like, okay, he's in our bullpen, I'm intrigued. If they come back and they're like, hey, we're going to put him back in the rotation. No way. Nothing has looked good.
Yeah, I just don't think this is working out at all. And who knows if he's even given a shot back into the rotation when he comes back. He may go straight to the bullpen upon return. So I think he's
taken him out of the bullpen.
Yeah. At some point, I think that they're just going to make the decision to put him back in the bullpen. And there he could be a closer. So, I mean, you're not holding on to him, but he may be someone to watch if they do say, as he's doing his rehab assignment, like, hey, he's not going back in rotation. He's gonna be a 1 or 2 inning guy. Tristan Casas hits the IL with a rib strain. How worried are you on this?
Not great. I mean, I was watching the game at that particular moment when he did it, and he about came out of his shoes trying to crush a pitch at a mislocation and didn't get it. And then you could tell something wasn't right. I mean, he really overswung on the pitch. Yeah, you would expect him. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's out a month, if not more. So we'll see what the degree of the issue is. They're saying rib strain. To me, when I first saw it, I thought it was oblique right away.
And usually oblique injuries are 4 to 6 weeks to recover from. So I would anticipate, unless we get other news, and I was just looking on Twitter as we were talking to see if I could find any sort of timetable. I don't.
Is that Bobby Dahlbeck's music? Is Bobby Dahlbeck finally going to be able to do something here?
I mean, he's probably going to get the opportunity, I would think. Unless they're going to play like, I don't know, Rob Restnider or someone.
Well, no, Rob Restnider's got to cover for Tyler O'Neill until he comes back.
Yeah. Well, O'Neill's supposed to be back when eligible to be activated on Tuesday, so I don't think that's going to be.
Looking at roster resource, Dahlbeck's in there right now. I mean, the Red Sox lineup is it's a little thin at the moment. At
least their pitching's been going well.
Yeah, Cutter Crawford finally got that first win yesterday. Thank goodness. Our buddy Cozzolino was actually at that game. He sent me some pictures. Nice. So, yeah, that was nice. But speaking of Sox, I don't know if you've seen the White Sox lineup today, but we're recording this at 11. It's now 11:13 Eastern. MLB already has a no-hitter alert on the app. If they don't, they should. I mean, here is their lineup today. Their lineup is Nicky Lopez leading off. He of the 460 OPS, not OBP, not slug, OPS. And then we got Robbie Grossman. Eloy Jimenez is the only guy with there's 2 guys. And then Gavin Sheet. So if like Aaron Nola can navigate those 2, this is no hitter alert. Benintendi's hitting 5th. Benintendi's doing so bad right now. I am dropping him in AL labor. He's a full-time player. I'm dropping him. That's how bad he is right now. Kevin Pillar, Lenin Sosa, Brendan Shoemake, and Martin Maldonado. That is your White Sox lineup. That's why it should be on no-hitter alert in the first inning, because it is that bad, and they are that bad. But they're not the only bad team in baseball right now.
No, there's quite a few of them. Last piece of news before we jump into our FAAB pickups of the week. This came across the wire as we started recording. Victor Scott II is optioned down to AAA. Obviously, you were not holding on to him, but this is a warning for like we do every year on some prospect that like, gets a ton of hype, especially late in draft season. Like, don't overreach on these guys. Like, just don't do it. Like, I get that like the upside is massive, but you give away a lot of your upside when you're drafting these guys as early as they were going. And Victor Scott II got a lot of helium towards the end of draft season, for really no apparent reason.
Well, it's because it was this time last year. It was Jordan Walker. Oh, by the way,
Yep.
Still sucks this year. Same guy. Jordan Walker got all that hype, and then he got sent down. Then he actually came back and did pretty decently. And maybe that's the best case scenario for Victor Scott, is that he can come back up and
definitely
speed plays. But he's not the only speed guy we're going to be talking about today. And let's see what people do with the speed option this weekend, because he's about halfway down our punch list today. But let's see what people do with the speed option this week, and see if there's any lessons learned about not overreaching for somebody.
Yeah. All right, let's move right on into FAAB, and let's start with Albert Suarez. Suarez is not a young guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he looked good in spring. He's going to be starting for the Orioles. It's a great park and team to pitch for. Are you picking up Albert Suarez at all?
It's when you look at things every year, Baltimore's got somebody that comes out of somewhere. Nobody had Yainer Cano really on their radar, and then look what he did last year. When I first look at Suarez, that's kind of what I think about, is that. And the fact that Craig Kimbrell hasn't exactly been lights out. I mean, look what happened yesterday. The Orioles were up. They lit up Nick's boy, Cole Reagans. Nick, I know you're listening. I didn't even text you. I felt so bad for you, but now I'm calling you out. So because you didn't text me the other day, so I have to call this out. Anyhow, Kimbrell has not been lights out. So it's like, if you want to start stacking what's possible behind him, it's worth the spec and see how the situation plays out.
Suarez is starting.
Oh, my bad. I thought he was going to be in the bullpen.
No, he came in and he threw 5 2/3 scoreless.
Oh, I thought he's going to be in the bullpen. Wow.
No,
okay, never mind.
He's going to be starting. He had a good outing versus the Twins. He's going to jump right into their rotation, I think, replacing Tyler Wells.
Oh, yeah, that kind of makes, Wells, they said it was preemptive, and let's hope it is. But, yeah, okay, well, I mean, he's got offensive support, even in a loss. Baltimore
in a really
yesterday.
in a really good park. I mean, this is obviously a 15-team play, and you could potentially stream him. Let me get where his outing. He's going to be at the Angels.
That's not the layup matchup that it used to be. Even though Rendon's likely hitting the IL if he hasn't already. Because one thing I don't know.
Well, that probably helps the Angels.
Most likely. I mean, the thing with the Angels, they're running a lot this year, and that's really been the impact of that offense. I mean, we've seen Mike Trout. Mike Trout has as many steals this year as he has with 3 previous seasons combined. With that, he has more steals this year than the Cubs do as a roster. So he's running. Taylor Ward's running. Renjifo's running. Ron Washington's got this team in motion, and so offensively, I mean, they're playing good ball. Last I checked, they were in first place in the American League West. Still looking over there, and they are. Now they're 9-12. They're on a bit of a losing streak, but they were in first place in the American League West just a couple days ago. But that team is in motion. They're not standing around waiting for something magical to happen.
Yeah, I don't mind the matchup. It's not a team I'm running away from, but it's also not a team I'm necessarily attacking at the moment. So I think Suarez is a really interesting guy. Like I said, he's 34 years old. I believe he was playing in Korea.
KBO. Yep.
Yeah. So previously, he hasn't walked a batter in his major. He didn't walk a batter in his major league start. And didn't give up an earned run. So I mean, this is an interesting guy to kind of take a shot on, especially like you said, like if he can just go 5, the Orioles are going to give him a shot to win the game. So if you're win seeking. I think this isn't a bad opportunity, especially in a 15-team league. I think in 10s and 12s, it's probably more of a watch list guy than he is a pickup this week for sure. Keaton Winn is going to be a widely picked up guy this week. He's got a 2-start week, I believe, versus the Mets and the Pirates. Winn is a guy that has got a ton of or got not, I don't want to say a ton of pub, but a fair amount of pub early on in spring training because he
Right.
was a guy that was high up on Eno's stuff plus metric. He
Yep.
hasn't shown a lot of stuff necessarily this year. I've been very impressed by him. Are you interested in Keaton Wynn?
You can watch. So I watched a little bit of his outing against Tampa Bay recently. So you can see there are times where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
intrigued, and then there, you look at the results, you're like, yeah. But this week, especially the Pirates are not playing well. So if he's got a 2-start week that includes the Pirates, it's a shame because the Pirates were playing extremely well, but they've been in a bit of a slump of late here. So I'm willing to take the chance on it, but it would have to be a deeper format. Mixed leagues, I'm taking a pass on that. But if I'm in an NL league or an 18 team mixed league, I'll take the chance.
Yeah, I think I would do it in a 15 team or two, depending on what your other options are. Like for instance, like I've got like on my main event, like my bench right now. I'm gonna have to put one of these guys in my active lineup. I've got Patrick Sandoval, who got just tore up yesterday. Or I have a 2-start JP Sears versus the Yankees and versus the Orioles. I don't want to start either of those guys. So I think I would pivot to a Keaton Wynn in kind of that scenario. But in your 10s and 12s, I don't think that Wynn really registers quite yet. Like this stuff is decent, but this is like very much like a Dustin May type situation where like he looks better than he actually produces for fantasy because he allows so much contact. We're talking about an 89% zone contact. That is quite a bit higher than league average. He's not getting a ton of swings and misses, just a 10% swing and strike rate right now. So I'm not a Keaton Wynn guy. And so like I'm sure like would be like, no, this is time to buy on him. But for me, I think he's a pass outside of kind of your deeper leagues.
So when you mentioned the Yankees, one thing, because Rays and Yankees are playing each other this weekend, so I've been tuned in with it. Offensively, they got shut out over 10 innings yesterday. And then on Friday night, outside of one inning where they put up a 5 spot because the Rays committed 2 errors, and with everything, the Yankees had no runs. So they've been shut out in 18 of the 19 innings in the series so far. And then the 5 spot, they were granted, like, here, please, here's 5 outs. Go ahead and do something with it. And Soto hit a ball that still hasn't come down with that. So it's like that offense is at, I mean, my daughter sent me a text yesterday that the fans were booing Aaron Judge after his golden sombrero yesterday. Gotta love that when he goes 0 for 4 strikeouts against Eflin in the bullpen, and he is getting booed at home. Oof. But the offense has been inconsistent, yet they're still in first place. I'm talking about the Yankees. Yeah.
Griffin Canning is another guy who might be of interest for people in FAAB this week. He doesn't have a great start or a great matchup this week. He's home versus the Orioles, like we just mentioned. Orioles are hitting pretty much everybody right now, but he looked much better in his last start. This is a guy who was kind of a pretty trendy sleeper coming in. Are you buying on Griffin Canning right now more of as a stash guy than a guy you would use this week?
It would have to be a stash guy because he's already allowed 5 home runs this season. And I want to take this point to point out some things that are going on around the league with home runs. And my latest article at RotoWire talked of, actually not this 2 weeks ago, talked about it, but I mentioned the pitching. Home runs are down this year. And this is not, and it's not a matter of, I don't believe this is ball production, because the drag, if you go to Baseball Savant and look at the drag coefficient from March, April, and 23 and compare it to 24, it's nearly identical. So we're not seeing that the ball is that there's higher seams or something. What seems to be in play is that there is more control, maybe standardization over how the balls are being stored at ballparks in the humidor or something. Because if you look at the expected contact and ballparkpal.com had some numbers on this week, you look at and some graphs on it, you look at what the ball should be doing based off the quality of contact, it simply is not traveling as far as it should. And so, like, if you look at measures of home run by contact, so take home runs and divide it by at-bats minus strikeouts. This time last year, 4.53. Right now, 3.99. And that's a drop. That's an 11.9% decline in home run per contact. Home runs per fly ball last year, In March, April, 12.2. Right now, it's 10.7. So that's a 12.3% decline. Isolated power, 158 to 144. That's a 9% decline. So the ball just is not traveling right now. When usually you say that, people are like, oh, it'll heat up. Yes, it'll heat up, but it heated up last year as well. So that's why I'm comparing March, April 23 to March, April of 24. And right now, this month, this time frame of this season is underperforming last year. And so one of the other things I see coming into play there, and I mentioned this earlier with the Angels, they're running more. And so is the league, even though the percentage, the stolen base percentage in March, April, over the entirety of last year, because I couldn't isolate March, April for this, but over the entirety of last year, we all know the league was about 80% success. In fact, it was 80.2% stolen base rate. This season, right now, it's 78.9. So it's come down a little bit. And if you look at, I forgot who wrote the article, but somebody noted back in spring training and even early in the season, the pop time from catcher to second was actually better this season than it was last year. So people did their offseason homework. But teams are attempting more stolen bases right now. It's gone up just 1.5%, but they're attempting more stolen bases right now. And I believe that they're doing that because they're picking up on the fact, hey, there's just not as many home runs this year. So we've got to find other ways to generate offense. And even if we're losing a little bit stolen base success rate, we got to keep these guys moving. And so that's what I'm seeing right now in the league as we're wrapping up 3.5 weeks of play with this, but that's what's happening right now. And so when I look at a guy like Canning, who has allowed 5 home runs in 19 innings in a season where the ball just isn't traveling, I don't want him active on my roster right now, but if I have a way of stashing, because I do like the talent, he's just going through a rough spot right now.
I mean, I'll give him a little pass on the home runs just because 3 of them came in the same game. Maybe he just didn't have the feel of those pitches in that game. And like, if we just normalize that down a little bit, like all of a sudden you're going from a guy who, has a really bad home run problem to a guy who's just a mediocre home run problem. So like,
4 of his 5 homers have come against Boston.
Yeah.
I so 2 of those are Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah. So like, I'm not going to ding him up too badly. Looked pretty good against Tampa Bay. Looked much, but just has kind of struggled early on. I've always liked Canning. I've always thought he was a really talented pitcher. I'm willing to take a gamble on him as a stash. I'm not using him versus Baltimore, especially when it's not in Baltimore.
Yeah, indeed, because he's still a very high fly ball pitcher. 32% ground ball rate in Anaheim. The ball will still travel. And like I said, I like the talent. I just don't want him on my active roster this week.
Nathaniel Lowe coming off the IL. Any interest in him? He's probably going to be available in some 10 or a lot of 10s and some 12-team leagues.
Yeah, and as long as he's in that offense, yes. I mean, we know that we saw more of what the real Nathaniel Lowe was last year than what he was in 2022 when he was just taking advantage of the situation, really overperforming against when they had shifts, and he was getting a lot of soft contact the other direction, and that stuff that's really not sticky year to year. But we're still talking about a guy who, as soon as he came out the IL, hit 5th yesterday. So they're putting him right back in the middle of the lineup, right behind Adolis Garcia and right in front of Josh Smith and the younger, softer part of that lineup. But yes, as long as he's hitting there, I'm interested. And but that said, look more towards 2023 and not 2022 for rest of the season expectations.
Yeah, he's just not a guy who elevates the ball when he makes contact, an extreme amount. And so like the idea that he's going to get back to like mid to high 20s home runs, I think is not going to happen. I think you are looking at a guy that's like high teens, low 20s home runs, but hitting 5th in that lineup. He could deliver a pretty decent batting average, score a lot of runs and RBIs. I do like Nathaniel Lowe. I think he was an underrated guy coming into draft season. And then obviously the injury kind of derailed a lot of his value. I took some cheap gambles on him, so I'm really looking forward to getting him back. All right. What about Gabriel Arias? Any interest there?
I want to say I even have him on a team. I'm trying to remember if I have him. Yikes. This is when you have too many teams. I mean, he is. Yeah. I mean, I would in an AL only league. I would love to have somebody that can hit for average because I'm struggling in a few places. So yes, in an AL in a mixed league, I don't see the upside, but in a mono league format, yes. I'll take a shot, see what happens.
I mean, what I'll say I think you and I were talking about before we hit record, the amount of injuries this year.
Yeah.
Like the amount of injuries this year are just so obscene that it's really, really difficult right now to just field an active roster in a lot of spots, especially if you're in a league with very few IL spots or 0 IL spots.
Looking at you, Tout. Why did we reduce our injury spot this year? Oh.
So while I don't think he necessarily, I mean, he's definitely not 10 or 12 team relevant, but in a 15 team league, he's already first and shortstop eligible. He's going to pick up other eligibilities. So far, he's already played 6 games at third, 4 games at short, 2 games at second. Like, he is going to pick up eligibilities all over the diamond. And those guys make a lot of sense, even if they're not producing at a high level, just because they can fill roster spots for you when injuries happen. And there's just been so many injuries this year. So I think especially if you're looking for added flexibility in a 15-team league, you could do worse than Gabriel Arias.
Indeed. Flexibility is key right now. And that brings us up to the next guy.
Yeah, speaking of flexibility, a guy I like quite a bit more than Gabriel Arias is Ahmed Rosario, who is going to be eligible. I believe he's eligible at second and short already and is going to add.
If you have 1 game eligibility, he's second short outfield. If you have 3 game eligibility, he's second outfield, but he's only a game away from shortstop. And if you have 5 game, then he is second base and outfield.
So far, Ahmed Rosario is hitting 330 or 343, 352, 514. He's got 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases, playing fairly regularly here for your Rays. What have you seen in Ahmed Rosario?
I believe it's like he's a motivated dude. Remember, he signed a 1 year, $1.5 million contract. That's not what he was looking for when he went into free agency, but that's what he ended up with. And he lives in the Tampa Bay area, so perhaps he's playing for that deal. But what I like about him is, like, again, he's being used in multiple places. He has that flexibility, and we know it. We know he can make good contact. We know he can run. He's done those things. He's hit for power. He had a late inning home run over the weekend. He's had some nice timely hits in some of these late comebacks of late. So yeah, I like the flexibility. I don't know if he's getting enough. I mean, it's all in pace. He's not even. What is he? He has 1 walk, which is 1 more than Jose Caballero has, by the way. The 2 of those guys have 1 walk combined on the season, and so it's the impatient. But let's be real, Rosario has never been a patient hitter. This is what he does. He makes a lot of contact. He looks at the first strike he can find and try to put it in the play. And he's doing really well with that right now. So, we could see it slide back, but he's making his way on the field. He's in some platoon situations like this weekend. He's been in different spots. So, yeah, in a 15 team league, if I'm covering injuries, yes. In a shallower league, not yet, because there's still not enough there for me to get on board in a shallow format.
He is eligible at second, short, and outfield in leagues. He is making 92% zone contact. He's dropped his O swing down from 40-something% down to 38%. Still not
trying to hit the first strike he sees.
Yeah, but he's doing a really, really good job of it. And Rosario is one of those guys where he just needs playing time. And I know he's really, really bad defensively, and that's going to cost him playing time at times. But I just think they're going to give him opportunities to get in the lineup, and try to hide his defense the best that they can, when possible. And, his power, their speed. I mean, this guy was a top 150 player for a few years, and there's no reason to think he can't do something similar. I'm not saying he's going to, but I think he should be rostered in every 15-team league.
And he already has 6 infield hits too.
Yeah, and I think he needs to be rostered in a lot of 12s. Again, if you're battling with injuries, the guy who's triple eligible, makes a lot of sense coming off of your bench as a fill-in guy. And when you've got power and speed and you're hitting for batting average, I think it just makes too much sense to leave him on the wire. He's going to be one of my top targets in 12-team leagues this week.
Cool deal.
All right. Moving on out to the outfield, Jonathan Clase. Paul and I talked about him briefly earlier this week, but he's going to be one of the big FAAB pickups of the week. This is a guy who's stolen just a crap ton of bases in the minor leagues. probably a better fantasy player or fantasy baseball player than he is a real life baseball player. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Clase?
Yeah, and so this is what we were referring to earlier in the Victor Scott conversation. I mean, with Clase, we're talking about a guy who stole 79 bases last year, and also hit 20 homers between high A and double A. And if you go to the Fangraphs page and look at the Zips projections for him, they've got him at 12 homers, 66 runs, 55 RBIs, and 31 steals the rest of the year. Of course, it's with a 206 batting average and a 281. I don't even know what to compare that to. I'm trying to think of another player that's had that kind of skill comp where it's like, oh, hey, here's all these steals, here's double-digit home runs, and here's a 206 batting average. Maybe it's what you thought Jose Siri was going to do last year. Reggie Abercrombie. Like, I'm reaching back trying to figure out some guys, but
Dyson never had the power.
No, I'm just trying to think of somebody like who had that kind of ridiculous speed and got some kind of offensive potential. But we saw it on display yesterday on that little league almost home run that he had, that your boy Sean Bouchard just overran the ball, and Clase tried to score and got thrown out at home after hitting what should have been a single with that. And so we see his speed on display. You don't see a lot of guys get 80 grade speed thrown on him. Like Victor Scott has it, Billy Hamilton had it, and Clase has it. But when you look at Zips, it's like, ooh, let's look, here's the batting average. And then last year I mentioned he had 20 homers along with that. He hit 333 at high A, but then hit 222 when he got the double A. And then he hit 311 in the smallest of sample sizes in AAA Tacoma, but he kind of all over the place. So we see a lot of athleticism. I'm not saying go out there and like repeat your Victor Scott bids with this, because there obviously is a lot of downside for a guy that has strikeout rates approaching 30% or higher. 30%, right? I'm looking at strikeout rates. Lots of strikeouts throughout the minor leagues. Zips even has him as 33% the rest of the way, which is what puts a cap on his ceiling. That said, if you're hurting for offense, you're not going to see a lot of potential darts like this come up. And if he gets on that heater, enjoy it while it's there. And then if he gets like that second time around exposure in the league and all of a sudden things start falling apart, be ready to move on.
Yeah, I wouldn't go crazy. And I think some people are going to go crazy this weekend on Clase just because the speed potential is so massive. But I just don't know how safe his job is. I mean, I don't know how long until Canzone's going to come back. Like you said, like he just doesn't have a very good hit tool. Now, that being said, he is making like 90% zone contact, 91% zone contact right now, swinging outside the zone less than 28% of the time, which is great. Swing and strike rate of less than 6%, which is amazing. So he's making a lot of contact, and it's not all like soft contact. There's a decent amount of hard contact. The problem is a lot of that decent hard contact is on the ground. He's got a 45% ground ball rate, 0 barrels, which tells you, in spite of making 45% hard contact rate, he's not elevating it enough to qualify for a barrel. So I'm a little skeptical that this is going to work long term, but he's playing right now. There's a ton of speed to be had. I don't think he's a zero in terms of power. I do think that eventually the skills will catch up to him, but if you can get him at an affordable price, I would take the gamble, because like I don't think it is unreal to say that like there's potential like 20 stolen bases in like 2 months here if he's hot for 2 months. So I'm willing to take the gamble a little bit. What about Wilyer Abreu? With all the injuries in Boston, Abreu is getting a little bit more playing time. Hitting fairly decently, 244, 370, 400. 1 home run, 4 stolen bases. Any interest there?
Yeah, well, he may be the MVP of my AL tout team so far. So he is somebody that I actually drafted, and he is doing well so far. We look at 370 on base percentage. He's got 4 steals. I mean, we're also talking about a guy, yes, Worcester. That is where their AAA franchise is now. 22 home runs last year in AAA, and he hit 274, 391, 538. Right now, it's been a little bit of a lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts, but a lot of athleticism around that. And we've already said with that lineup, they're having trouble staying healthy. Cassis just hit the IL. O'Neill should hopefully be back, but there's still going to be playing time options there for Abreu. And yes, I have interest in the athleticism because not like Boston's got much else banging down the door to come up. And we look at where Abreu's been playing in the lineup since they've had to retweak the lineup. He's hit second, third, or fourth over the past 4 days. Yeah. And so he's working his way up the lineup. That's more playing time. And maybe things will get settled out once Rafael Devers comes back, because he continues to miss time. Boy, well, that's been a fun. I got him in 2 leagues, and this has not been a good season to have Rafael Devers. But the fact that Abreu is hitting higher in the lineup right now speaks to what they think of him. And so, yeah, I'm interested in this.
Yeah,
and I mean, more than just AL only.
Yeah, I think he's definitely 15 team relevant. 12 team, probably not quite yet, but someone to kind of keep an eye on and see, especially once Tyler O'Neill comes back. Is Abreu's playing time as safe as I think it should be, right? Like, there's no reason that Rob Refsnyder should be in the lineup regularly for Boston.
Refsnyder's a nice guy to have around. That's especially if you're facing lefties. He's a nice guy for flexibility purposes to have around. It's who I picked up in a league where I just lost Tyler O'Neill this week. So it's like I have him, and once O'Neill comes back, I'll just flip him out and go that direction.
The problem with Abreu is kind of what you alluded to at the beginning, which is that strikeout rate. It's 31% strikeout rate right now, and it's completely backed up by 79% zone contact, way below league average, and a 15.4% swinging strike rate. Like he swings and misses quite a bit, and I just think that we could see a batting average cratering. I mean, he's hitting 244 right now, but his XBA is 179. Sweet. I do think this is going to crater at some point, but I think this is a short-term stream in deeper leagues that you shouldn't avoid. My boy is back.
You're a mentioned boy.
I showed some restraint by waiting till almost towards the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be the first guy we talked about.
Yeah, right. You would have thought I would have led off with Sean. Yeah. But Sean Bouchard is back. He's been called up by the Rockies now that Chris Bryant is on the IL. This is a guy who's got some interesting skills playing in Colorado. Any interest there?
No.
Oh,
no, sorry. But we have a terrible team. When we were talking earlier about terrible teams, it's like the Rockies should be on their knees thanking the powers above every night that the White Sox exist, because the Rockies are just damn unwatchable right now. They are terrible. And it's just not good. And, they're offensively, even at home, they got shut out last night in the snow by Luis Castillo. I mean, and Luis Castillo, frankly, has not pitched well this year and normally struggles in cold weather, but was blowing them away last night with that. And so, no, the fact Bouchard's hit 6th each of the past 2 days speaks to like, okay, kid, go out there and try it. I don't know what else. I really don't know what else to say. I just wish this team would wake up out of its offensive slumber. And we know the pitching is going to be terrible, but I just want more from this team, especially because I have Ezekiel Tovar everywhere. And I'm still waiting for more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in on Sean Bouchard. Like, I think there's a good enough hit tool to carry him here. There's power in the profile, a little bit of speed. Playing in Colorado, you get a full week of Colorado this week. Like, yeah, he's going to be at the top of my bid list this week. And maybe that is biased because of what he did for me at the end of last season. But I just think there is a good player in here, and he just needs the playing time. And Michael Toglia just sucks. Like, there's no reason Toglia should be playing irregularly. I think they should give Bouchard this opportunity.
Toglia started 3 straight games in the middle of this week. I mean, the thing kills me with Tovar, he's doing his part, but he's been on base almost 36% of the time and has 9 runs. It's like, come on, man. Why are we scoring more for this guy? He's hitting high in the lineup and nobody's driving him in.
That team is just a disaster. All right, Tommy Pham, he's down in the minor leagues with
he's
Chicago.
In Charlotte.
He's in Charlotte. He's going to be up soon. He will be a big FAAB pickup this week in leagues that where he's available, because he is assigned to a deal and should be up probably in the next week or two. Any interest in Tommy Pham?
Always have a spot for Tommy Pham, especially when he's going to be with the White. I look at this situation like this. He signed with the worst team in the league. He's going to get everyday playing time. Yeah. Every day. Like if you I think I mentioned earlier, I'm dropping Benintendi in AL labor because he's in my waterfall. If I get different players, Benintendi's going to be the guy that suffers. But there's a good chance that FAAB could come up and Benintendi could find himself playing in a platoon, not playing as regularly because they've got Eloy just came back. Robert is coming back here at some point. So FAAB could come up, and the goal is simple. Get him out there, show he's got something left, flip him by the trade deadline. That's the goal. So this isn't a rest of the season pickup. He is going to get a lot of playing time until he's traded, and then he won't get playing time. So I am interested in FAAB as long as he's up playing with Chicago, because the playing time will be there for him, because as we talked about earlier, that lineup is just embarrassingly bad right now.
There is power and speed, but it's going to be empty power and speed because that team is so bad around him that the runs.
He's going to have 10 home runs and 14 RBIs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's going to have 15 runs scored because he's going to drive himself in 10 times.
Yeah, but he should be widely rostered in a lot of leagues because he's, like you said, he's going to play every time. When Paul and I discussed him initially after the original signing, I did a quick would you rather with just other members of the White Sox lineup. And I was making the argument that while Luis Robert is on the IL, that he's the best fantasy player on this team. I think you can make an argument for Eloy, but ultimately, I think Tommy Pham is the best, non-Luis Robert player on the, or at least on the offense.
Fantasy-wise. I mean, he hit 16 home runs and stole 22 bases last season.
Yeah,
and that wasn't even over a full season. That's what he did last year. So the talent is still there. Now he could be out there every single day. And by the way, he's high in that lineup too.
Yeah,
Nicky Lopez is hitting leadoff today. Nicky effing Lopez is hitting leadoff. And Craig, I know you're saying I called this, and I know you're listening to this, but come on, Nicky Lopez, you're getting what you pay for, Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're both in on Tommy Pham. Let's move over to the Brewers closing situation because we didn't quite know who was going to be coming into the season. People had their guesses. All of a sudden, Abner Uribe gets the closing job, saves their first few games, but he has struggled mightily and has seemingly lost the grip on the closer role. They've brought in Joel Payamps to close. It looks like the Trevor McGill may factor in. Both McGill and Payamps are widely available in leagues right now. Are you picking up either of them?
Payamps would be the guy that I'd be most intrigued in. So one of the things when I was looking at the Milwaukee and looking at the bullpen usage over the last couple of days, one of the things that stands out to me, Uribe has pitched 3 times this week, and twice he had 30-plus pitch innings. That's or outings. Yeah, that's not ideal. Trevor McGill has only pitched once this week, and he too had a 30-pitch outing. And then you look at Payamps has pitched 3 times, 14, 16, 15. That's a guy who's not wasting his pitches. That's a guy who's not falling behind in a lot of counts for him to be able to do that. So just on that alone, that's what got my attention looking at that. And I would take my shot with Payamps because if we think about coming into the season, Payamps was the guy we were all looking at. Yeah. There was a little bit of McGill, and Uribe really wasn't on our radar too much because he was looking lower down the depth chart. And then we got Shiny New Toy and Uribe, and then we forgot about Payamps. Payamps seems to have put himself back in position there. And then even Elvis Peguero. Elvis Peguero is one of the guys who's got multiple wins. When I took a look at it earlier this week, we had 6 different relievers tied with the league lead with 3 wins. And it's really tough he does have 3 wins in 10 innings. And it's really tough for you guys who play in 10 to 12 team mixed leagues because you're seeing 44% of wins go to relievers right now. And we've never had that in a season that hasn't been impacted by some external factors. So 2 years ago, when we had the labor strike and we had shorter spring training, that particular March, April, we had a 56-44 split between starting pitcher and relief pitcher wins. But we're seeing that right now. We don't have any external factors. We don't have the full-blown pandemic. We don't have the labor strike. We don't have a shortened any. It's just this is it right now. There's a lot of relievers picking up wins, and it's really pissing off your 10 to 12 team mixed leagues because you're not rostering these guys. They're not out there on your roster, and yet we have 6 different relievers with at least 3 wins, and then we're staring at Cole Reagans, who has none. And last night was his first terrible outing. Cutter Crawford finally got a win. And he has a sub-1 whip and ERA, and he finally got his first win. And here we have relievers picking up wins. So if you're in a AL, NL only format, it's cool. You can find these guys. But mixed leagues, wins are tough sledding right now because they're going to relievers. Some of them are closers, and it helps. Craig Kimball's got 3 wins along with the saves. But some of these other guys, you just can't roster them, but you see them continue to pick up wins.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a situation that just changes hands over and over and over again. I think it's going to be like a lot of people are going to drop Uribe, myself included, to go try to pick up a Pyomps, to go pick up a Trevor McGill. I do think Pyomps is kind of the guy right now.
Mhm.
Uh, but I think next week we could be talking about McGill being the guy, or in a few weeks we talk about Uribe. I think this is just going to continue to cycle. If you can afford to just stash, you know, two of these guys, like I actually probably would, because I think that it's going to be a flavor of the week or flavor of the month each week or month in Milwaukee.
And are we
So
still looking at All-Star break for Devin Williams? Is that still the story? So we're still talking like
I don't think he's coming back.
okay.
Like, I mean, they said 3 months until he starts baseball activities.
Oh, never mind. So All-Star break doesn't
So
really make sense.
yeah, so like, and like
Right.
we're also talking about like this is like serious back surgery. You just never know how guys are going to recover from this. Like, yeah, obviously if you're in a league with a lot of IL spots, you just keep holding on to Devin Williams until we get more news. But I wouldn't count on it. Like the people who drafted him in NFBC leagues, like I don't know what you were thinking once the injury news came out.
Yeah,
So
I see you.
all right. Let's finish up with the last guy, which is Justin Slayton. Kenley Jansen hasn't looked great. Chris Martin has been banged up quite a bit. Slayton has been pitching well and could be in line for saves at some point. Are you stashing him at all?
Yeah, based off what you, and let's not forget that Jansen's a free agent after the season. So is Chris Martin. So even if Martin's back, there's a good chance the way Boston's playing right now and whatnot, that both of those guys aren't even in the picture. So if you want to try to get ahead of the game and try to look at what else could possibly be out there and take a look at it, it's worth it. I mean, Jansen did get his 5th save last night. So he's at least been grabbing the saves. But again, both of those guys are free agents. And I don't expect either of them to be on the team by August 1st. And then you start trying to look at what else is out there. And right now you see Justin Slayton getting that time, although he's only pitched once this week. But you know, that's the way Boston is right now. Just looking
they're not winning a lot of games.
Days. Yeah. So get ahead of the game. Yeah, it's worth if you have a stash, if you have a deeper bench. I can't recommend this in FBC. But in a deeper bench, it would be nice to get ahead of the game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is a deeper stash where you've got a lot of reserve spots because I think they're going to continue to throw Jansen out there no matter what until they trade him, right? And I just don't know that the trade's going to happen before July. So you're going to have to wait quite a while, but definitely a guy to put on your watch list in your shallower formats because if you want to, be a little sneaky and, stash him for a couple weeks before the trade deadline, I think this is going to be the guy that will probably be getting saves in the second half of the season for Boston.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. In my 11 team AL home league, he's already rostered. Somebody already has it.
Makes sense. Because I mean, with Kenley's injury history and Chris Martin's injury history, like we could next week be talking about, Slayton is the top pickup because both those guys went down. Right. So, but I mean, I think until we see an injury, I just don't know that he's going to be able to get much more than just the occasional save here.
Yep.
All right. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, I want to remind everybody to reach us on social media and plug anything you got going on.
So you find me down at Blue Sky or Threads. I'm posting in both places. Same username, easy to find. Let's see. This week I'm going to see the Charleston River Dogs play Kannapolis, so I get to see the Rays farm system. So it'll be nice. The weather's like spring's trying to cling. We had 88 degrees. I had put the AC on earlier this week. Today it's like 50 and it's raining outside, but it's supposed to be really nice this week. So looking forward to getting to Kannapolis because I've been to one game. I went to their home opener. I went to the Charlotte home opener already. And so I did not go to a minor league baseball game this past week, even though I was in Chicago when the White Sox and Royals were there. Game got rained out. I couldn't have gone anyways. I was working with that. And so, but my latest piece at Collette Calls, as I said, is about the state of pitching. And I've hinted at two of the things in that article in this during this podcast. One, where how pitcher wins are going to a lot of relievers right now, more than we've ever seen that. And it's just a trend to continue to watch right now. And then secondly, where where offense is going, because right now we're seeing a lower run environment. And I know some of you guys are looking at some of your pitchers going, tell that to Griffin Canning, right? But we're seeing a lower run environment because the ball just is not going as far as it has. in this time or during March, April as it has in previous March, Aprils. The home run to contact is as low as we've ever seen it, except for the 1 year where we knew they were playing with the baseball. So let's keep an eye on that and seeing how that impacts. But if you want to read more about that, go over to Collect Calls at RotoWire. And you can always get it for free for 10 days. If you don't have a subscription, rotowire.com/free gives you 10 days, no credit card needed, and go read it and see what you think.
All right. You can reach me on social media at Justin Mason FWFB. So I think my social media on pretty much every single platform. I'm on every single platform. I mostly use Twitter still, but and the occasional, or obviously YouTube and then Twitch as well. But I think I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Mastodon. I'm on Threads. I just rarely use them. I got to get better about that. So yeah, and then you can read my work over on Fangraphs. I'm writing 5 days a week, and on Fantasy Pros, where I'm writing 3 days a week. Man, just blanking on where I'm at these days. And I'm on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast, recording 2 to 3 times a week as well. There, for Jason, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Thanks, guys.